Helen, the end of days scenario seems to have been building towards the Bush presidency and through it, and obviously 9/11 was a huge catalyzing event there in terms of a lot of people's psychology. Has the Bush presidency produced a new era in the far right, or has the far right produced the Bush presidency?
It's very tempting to kind of just fudge on that question. I think it's a bit of both to an extent. I think there's no question that the far right helped Bush get elected. They were a major kind of demographic and a swing vote, if you like, in his election, because they usually just don't vote, and the fact that they all went out and voted for him made a huge difference. That said, you know, his actions as president, his claims to be taking instructions basically directly from God have, you know, have definitely kind of spurred them on.
I'm glad you said that, because I have a quote from George W. Bush from 2003 where he said, "I'm driven with a mission from God. God would tell me, George, go and fight those terrorists in Afghanistan," and I did. And then God would tell me, George, go and end the tyranny in Iraq, and I did. So in terms of a mission, Neil, it's been very plainly put to the American people. How does that correlate with his actual government and the people who are in it? Because it is perceived or seen, I mean, there's a lot of Christians in his government, but it's seen as a particularly far-right Christian government.
Yes,
Does that bear out in reality, do you think, or is it something that people are just worried about?
It's a moot point, actually. I mean, the reality is that, you know, he's used that position in order to be able to maintain his power and his policies, and
to placate the funders and the people who are in the Christian right giving money.
Because there's a tremendous amount of money involved in this, and I think this is one of the aspects that is really worrying. That the Christian right and these far right extremist groups they may still be relatively fringe groups, but they have fantastic resources behind them.
And also, sort of massive reach in terms of audiences and so on as well. I think when we talked about Jesus Camp a few months ago, someone in that said you can't be a Christian and vote Democrat. So not only are they conflating religion and you know, patriotism, but also politics.
Well, this is the really crucial point. Now we're getting to it. I mean, in the past, they could have been just cults, and they had their own. They were kind of spiritual gated communities. But it's all over now. It's gone beyond that. They have a real political impact, and I think that is the danger. And I think there's a tremendous amount of people in and around the Bush government who subscribe to that view. And the military as well, which is really, really worrying.
Dominionists, as appearing in the film, their aim is to politicize religion and get religion into government. So that seems quite worrying on its face.
Into the government and into the armed forces.
Let's take a pause there and see our last clip, where evangelical Christian recruitment is revealed in sectors of the US military.
As you know, 9/11 changed everything for the United States of America and changed things in the world. So as we train our soldiers to fight the war on terrorism, the spiritual nature of this battle is very important. We take in the sons and daughters of America and we bring them into the military forces, and they are mentally transformed, they are physically transformed, and in God's providence they can be spiritually transformed. If we can influence the military for Jesus Christ, we can influence nations, regions, and continents for Jesus Christ.
We had an Air Force chaplain who chose to baptize Air Force members in Saddam Hussein's swimming pool, and chose to have photos taken of this and have those photos published to make of that some kind of publicity event which projects to the world that a Christian American army is inhabiting an Islamic country and performing Christian rituals in the palace of the former dictator of that country, the former Islamic dictator of that Islamic country, I think says very concerning and disturbing things. And then for the military to tout that activity and to laud that activity and to award that chaplain the designation of Air Force Chaplain of the Year is mind-boggling to me, quite frankly.
So the chaplain there is mind-boggled by the perception of the US Army, at least. Does the film make a connection, really, and persuade? This is one case where somebody was being pushed into fundamentalist Christianity in an army training camp. But is this a film saying that there's a problem nationally that actually could be a threat to other territories in the world?
I don't think that they make the case that it's 100% national, maybe, but they certainly make a case that there is a very large, at least large minority, if not majority, of the US Armed Forces who are engaging in this sort of activity as part of their sort of daily life.
And there are clearly funded ministries whose job it is to try and influence members of the military from within.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know why it should all start in Colorado Springs, but it seems that's where the sort of centerpiece of this is activity.
Within the film, anyway.
Within the film, certainly. And it has disseminated through it, because there are quite a lot of the commentators there from, even if they're ex-army, were major players. And I mean, look, armies, since there have been armies, have always fought with the knowledge that God was on their side. So, you know, there's nothing new in that concept.
Right.
But
yes.
It is the degree and the level of what's happening at this moment that is really, really concerning.
If we take a step back and just end on this thought that Michael Moore, for example, says that America, general average middle-class America, is pretty liberal, pretty tolerant. As far as the campaign of Barack Obama goes for president, wouldn't it be the case that he would not have got as far as he did if that wasn't true? What do you think, Helen?
I think there is something in that. I think, you know, we are getting perhaps scared of the bogeyman here a little bit. There's definitely that they are still a minority. The people in this film, they're still a minority, and I think that the vast majority of Americans would be as horrified by this as you know, as I am. So I think, yeah, there's definitely something in that. I think the question is more, this is a growing number. There's certainly more of these people than there were communists when McCarthy came to power. You know, so. There's definitely something to think about there.
It's a warning, but it's not the be-all and end-all.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
Well, that's all we've time for, I'm afraid. So thank you very much for coming, and discussion was very interesting. So warm thank you to my guests, Neil Norman and Helen O'Hara, and also thank you. I hope you'll join us again next week at the same time, Wednesday at 3:35 p.m. GMT. But in the meantime, we're eager to hear your views too, so please do email us at the address on the screen, cinepolitics@presstv.co.uk, and join our debate with any questions or suggestions for future films to discuss. But for now, goodbye.